There comes a time when your silence stops being patience and starts becoming betrayal. Not betrayal toward them, but betrayal toward your own soul. A slow, quiet kind of death, not physical, not even visible, but deeply spiritual, deeply emotional, deeply personal. You feel it in the moments when you bite your tongue so hard it bleeds, but still you smile. You feel it in the rooms where laughter feels like knives, and the air is thick with unspoken insults, hidden behind sarcasm and fake affection. You sit quietly, pretending you're not hurt, pretending you're not offended, pretending you're okay, but you're not. And your soul is screaming. You've been taught, trained even, to confuse endurance with virtue, to wear your tolerance like a crown, to suffer in silence and call it love, to mistake emotional starvation for strength, to call it maturity when you let people step all over your spirit. But here's the bitter truth. That kind of silence is not strength. It is suppression. It is survival. It is trauma dressed up in fake peace. And there's a cost. You lose pieces of yourself every time you say, "It's fine," when it's not. You betray your heart every time you nod and smile through disrespect. You sacrifice your spirit every time you make yourself small so others can feel big. This isn't just about being too sensitive. This is about emotional violence, psychological abuse, spiritual neglect. This is about what happens when people repeatedly show you who they are, and you still stay, still make excuses, still minimize your pain to keep the peace. Let me be clear, tolerance is not love. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting the same wound bleed. Kindness doesn't mean being a doormat. There's a line, and when people cross that line, again and again, without remorse, without awareness, without change, you owe it to yourself to say enough. Because if you don't, you begin to disappear, piece by piece, boundary by boundary, dream by dream, until one day you wake up, and you don't even recognize yourself in the mirror. You used to shine. You used to laugh freely. You used to have dreams that lit up your chest. But now you tiptoe around everyone's moods. You monitor your tone, your volume, your excitement, because someone made you feel like too much. You shrink, emotionally and spiritually, because someone said you were hard to love. You tolerate manipulation and mockery, because someone trained you to believe that pain is a part of love. But I need you to hear this, loud and clear. You are not too sensitive. You are not too emotional. You are not the problem. The problem is you've been gaslighted by people who benefit from your silence. You've been guilt-tripped into staying where your soul is dying. You've been praised for being so patient, when really they meant, "You're easy to mistreat." Let that sink in. They don't admire your kindness. They exploit it. They don't value your loyalty. They depend on your inability to walk away. And every time you excuse it, minimize it, rationalize it, you become a little less free. Let me tell you what freedom looks like. Freedom is when you no longer laugh at jokes that humiliate you. Freedom is when you stop justifying controlling behavior and start calling it what it is, emotional manipulation. Freedom is when you stop accepting silent treatment as a valid form of communication. Freedom is when you stop begging people to see you, to hear you, to care. Freedom is walking away, not because you're bitter, but because you finally love yourself more than the illusion of love they gave you. There's this lie we've been told, that true love is unconditional, that love means tolerating the worst, that love means always forgiving, always sacrificing, always staying. But unconditional love is not unconditional access. Unconditional love does not mean unconditional suffering. And loyalty that costs your sanity is not loyalty, it's self-abandonment. You are allowed to draw lines. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to choose peace over proximity. You are allowed to say, "This behavior is not okay," even if the person says they love you, because love without respect is manipulation. Love without honesty is deception. Love without safety is trauma. So today, let this be your wake-up call, your reminder that boundaries are not selfish, they are sacred. Your healing doesn't begin with them changing. It begins with you deciding that your peace, your sanity and your self-worth are not up for negotiation. And maybe that means losing people. But let me ask you this, if you have to lose yourself to keep them, are they really worth keeping? Think about that, because there comes a point where love becomes a leash, and freedom becomes survival, and silence becomes betrayal. Not betrayal of them, but betrayal of you, your truth, your values, your soul. And the longer you stay silent, the louder the war inside you gets. Your body knows. That tightness in your chest, that lump in your throat, that pit in your stomach, that's your intuition. That's your soul trying to tell you, you weren't made to live like this. So stop minimizing your pain. Stop dressing up dysfunction as devotion. Stop confusing abuse for affection. You weren't made to tolerate what breaks your spirit. You weren't born to be a background character in your own life. You were born to be seen, to be valued, to be free. And sometimes freedom means closing the door, even if you once loved what was behind it. Because no matter how much you care for someone, if staying with them means abandoning yourself, that's not love, that's emotional self-destruction. So rise, speak, draw the line. You don't need to shout to be powerful. You just need to say, no more pretending, no more shrinking, no more silence. This is the moment you reclaim your voice. This is the beginning of your return to yourself. There's a strange moment when you finally look around and realize you've been surviving a war you never agreed to fight. A war not with weapons, but with words, with neglect, with silence, with twisted smiles and just joking, jabs that pierce like glass. You were told you were too sensitive. You started to believe it. You were told your standards were too high. You began to lower them. You were told your emotions were too much. So you became quiet, and every time you did that, you didn't become stronger. You just became smaller. You let them stay. Even when their jokes burned. Even when their love controlled. Even when their presence felt lonelier than their absence. Why? Because deep down you thought maybe, just maybe, this is the price of love. That pain was the currency. That loyalty meant losing yourself. That forgiveness meant forgetting how much it hurt. But it's not. That isn't love. That's emotional debt you were never meant to carry. Love does not require your suffering. Love is not supposed to make you question your worth. Love does not ask you to tolerate disrespect as a test of your loyalty. But toxic people will make you believe otherwise. They're skilled. They wrap their cruelty in care. They lace their control with concern. They punctuate their abuse with I love you, so you second guess your pain. And it works, because when someone holds your heart, it's hard to see the bruises on your spirit. You'll cover for them. You don't know them like I do. They're just going through something. They didn't mean it. But deep down your soul knows. It flinches at their voice. It aches at their presence. It quiets itself to survive them. And when someone makes your peace feel like walking on eggshells, that's not love. That's emotional captivity. You were not made to be emotionally held hostage, to constantly explain your worth, to prove your pain, to beg for the bare minimum. You deserve relationships that don't require translation, that don't demand explanations for why you deserve basic respect, that don't turn your tears into ammunition, that don't weaponize your kindness as a weakness. Let's be honest about what tolerance looks like when it goes too far. It looks like staying silent after yet another joke that humiliates you. It looks like changing your clothes because they didn't like how you looked. It looks like avoiding your friends because they don't like them. It looks like apologizing for things you didn't do, just to keep the peace. It looks like begging someone to care, and calling that love. That is not patience. That is not kindness. That is not compromise. That is abandonment. Abandonment of the most sacred relationship of all, the one you have with yourself, and it starts so subtly. You let one comment slide, then 2, then 10. You let one broken promise go, then another. Then you stop expecting anything at all. Before you know it, you've normalized your own neglect. But let me remind you, you were not created to endure permanent emotional droughts. You were not born to crave affection from people who only give it when it serves them. You were not designed to live in constant emotional confusion, always wondering if you're too much. You are not too much. You're just finally realizing how little you've accepted. And that realization, it's terrifying. It shakes the ground beneath your feet, because it means you can no longer lie to yourself, no longer protect their image over your truth, no longer dress up dysfunction as just how they are. It's the moment you stop romanticizing your own suffering, the moment you whisper, this isn't love, and once you say that out loud, even just once, you can't unhear it. Because truth is louder than fear, and your healing begins when your silence ends. So let's name it, what you've been tolerating for far too long. Jokes that cut you down, but are disguised as playful banter. Dear love that tells you who to be, how to dress, and who to talk to. Dear last silence when you're hurting, and blame when you finally speak. Dear last lighting that makes you question your memory, your emotions, your reality. Dear last lighty that disguises itself as just caring. Dear last lighty the aggression that turns every moment into a guessing game. Dear last lighty that makes you feel like every problem is your fault. You didn't imagine these things. You didn't make them up. You were not the problem. You were simply taught to accept too little. You were raised to keep the peace, even when it killed your joy. You were told to just let it go, even as it broke your heart. But here's your permission slip to change the rules. You were allowed to raise your standards mid-relationship. You were allowed to say, "This hurts," even if you used to laugh it off. You were allowed to say, "I need more," even if you used to settle. You were allowed to walk away, even if you once said, "I'll never leave." You were not a prisoner to your past promises, especially when those promises were made under the weight of manipulation, guilt, and fear. Growth means changing your mind. Healing means breaking old agreements. Freedom means saying, "I can't keep betraying myself to protect your comfort." And no, it won't be easy. People will call you difficult. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're selfish. But guess what? You've changed because you healed. You're selfish because you finally learned to protect your soul. And you're difficult because you stopped making it easy for people to hurt you. That's not wrong. That's powerful. That's evolution. You're not becoming hard. You're becoming whole. And there's a difference, because strength doesn't always look like armor. Sometimes it looks like crying and walking away anyway. Sometimes it looks like shaking hands and saying goodbye with a broken heart. Sometimes it looks like choosing solitude over soul-crushing connection. Don't let anyone shame you for walking away from what was killing your light. Don't let anyone guilt you into staying small to make them feel big. Don't let anyone confuse your silence for acceptance anymore. This is your awakening. This is your rise. This is your revolution of self-worth. And from here on out, you don't shrink. You don't tolerate. You don't explain. You choose peace. You choose truth. You choose you. Because at the end of the day, the most radical act of self-love is refusing to abandon yourself, no matter who else walks away. And if loving you makes people uncomfortable, let them leave. Because the real ones, they won't ask you to dim your light. They'll hand you the match. There comes a moment in healing when you no longer look at your past with shame, but with wisdom. Not as a victim, but as a survivor. Not with regret, but with reverence for the version of you that endured what you didn't deserve. Let me say it clearly. You are not broken. You were bruised in places no one saw. You were exhausted from carrying what no one acknowledged. But you're still here, still breathing, still rising, and that means something. Because healing is not just about forgetting what hurt you, it's about remembering who you were before the world convinced you to be less. Before they told you calm down, every time you tried to express your truth. Before they rolled their eyes at your dreams. Before they chipped away at your confidence with each joke, each jab, each subtle rejection. Before they conditioned you to believe that love must hurt to be real. You were fire. You were laughter. You were light. And you still are. They just taught you to hide it, because your power made them uncomfortable. But today, you stop apologizing for your light. You stop explaining your standards to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop dancing for crumbs of affection. You stop auditioning for the bare minimum. Because peace is no longer something you're begging for. It's something you're building. You don't owe anyone access to your heart just because they had it once. You don't have to make yourself small to keep people who never grew. You don't need to defend your decision to leave what was killing your spirit. Listen closely. There are people who will never understand the battles you fought quietly. People who think your silence was weakness, not grace. People who believe they broke you, not realizing they built the strongest version of you. And when you rise, they'll call you names. Difficult, selfish, cold. Let them talk. Let them spin the story. Because your story, your real story isn't theirs to tell anymore. It belongs to you now. And this version of you, she doesn't beg, she doesn't chase. She doesn't explain her standards. She walks in peace, and anything that disrupts that peace is shown the door. You don't heal by reopening the door to what hurt you. You heal by locking it, boarding it up, and planting a garden in front of it. You heal by knowing that love does not require your silence. You heal by finally seeing that your boundaries are not walls, they are doors with locks, and you hold the key. And maybe you stayed too long before. Maybe you tolerated too much. Maybe you didn't speak up. That's okay. You did what you needed to survive. But survival isn't your story's ending. Thriving is. And thriving starts here. When you stop making excuses for people who hurt you. When you stop explaining the basic need to be loved well. When you finally say, no more. No more pretending I'm okay. No more brushing it off. No more being the emotional dumping ground for people who refuse to do the work. You are not their therapist, not their savior, not their second chance, after they broke your trust. You are not a rehab center for emotionally unavailable people. You are a whole universe. And the people who want to orbit your world need to bring peace, not chaos. They need to offer safety, not confusion. They need to honor you, not just when you're quiet and convenient, but when you're bold and fully alive. From here on out, you hold the pen, you write the terms, you decide who stays and who no longer gets the privilege of your presence. Because yes, your presence is a privilege. Your laughter is sacred. Your trust is gold. Your energy is precious. And the people who truly see you, they'll never risk losing you to petty games, passive cruelty or careless words. So let them leave, if they must. The ones who can't honor your heart were never meant to hold it. Let them talk. Let them twist the story. Let them say, you've changed. Smile, and say yes, I have. Changed into someone who knows her worth. Changed into someone who speaks her truth, even when her voice shakes. Changed into someone who no longer sacrifices her peace, just to keep the wrong people comfortable. That's growth. That's liberation. That's power. And don't be afraid to be alone for a while, because there's nothing lonelier than being surrounded by people who drain you. There's nothing colder than sharing a bed with someone who doesn't know how to hold your heart. There's nothing more soul-destroying than silencing your truth for the illusion of connection. Solitude is not punishment. It's where you hear your soul again. It's where you remember your own voice. It's where your healing begins to sing. And when you learn how to be full alone, you stop entertaining half-loves, fake friends, and almost connections. You stop needing validation from people who can't even love themselves. You stop craving attention from people who only see you when you're useful, because your self-worth doesn't live in someone else's approval anymore. It lives in your spine, in your stillness, in your refusal to accept anything less than what feeds your soul. You are no longer available for emotional poverty. You are no longer signing contracts with people who break your spirit. You are no longer accepting crumbs in the name of loyalty. This is your declaration. I choose peace over performance. I choose truth over tolerance. I choose myself, not because I'm selfish, but because I'm finally awake. And to those who say, you've changed, tell them, I've returned to the version of me I buried to make others comfortable. That girl, that woman, she's back, and she's not staying quiet anymore. The final word, when you stop tolerating toxic behavior, something magical happens. You get your voice back, your joy back, your clarity back, your soul back. And yes, it's hard, it's lonely, it's gut-wrenching, it's painful to let go of people you once built your future around, but nothing is worth losing yourself. So walk away from the table where love is no longer being served. Stand tall, speak truth, guard your heart, and know this: the people who are meant for you will not require you to betray yourself to be loved. Let the fire of your truth burn bright. Let your boundaries be loud. Let your peace be permanent. And let your comeback be the softest, strongest, most sacred thing you've ever done. Because you were never too much. You were just finally enough for you. You were never the problem. And if no one has told you this yet today, you are not hard to love. You are not too much. You are not broken for wanting depth, honesty, peace, and real connection. You are human. You are healing, and you are allowed to protect the softest parts of yourself without guilt. Let them misunderstand you. Let them call you dramatic, sensitive, or cold. Let them say, You've changed. Because they're right. You have. You've grown tired of games, tired of bleeding in silence, tired of smiling while you're suffocating, tired of apologizing for simply needing to be seen. This isn't bitterness. It's rebirth. This isn't revenge, it's resurrection. You are not punishing anyone by walking away. You're just saving yourself. And you don't have to explain that to anyone. You get to heal out loud. You get to redefine what love means to you. You get to set the terms for your peace. And you get to choose yourself, even if it makes others uncomfortable. Because at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself, sleep with your choices, carry the weight of what you allow, and if something or someone costs your peace, they are too expensive. So breathe, cry if you need to, stand in the wreckage, if that's where you are, but don't stay there. Don't shrink. Don't surrender your voice to silence again. Let today be the day you say, I'm done betraying myself to be loved. I'm done watering dead things, hoping they'll bloom. I'm done begging people to treat me like I matter. From this day forward, your peace is sacred. Your heart is protected. Your soul is home. And your story, it's just beginning.